communication and conversation is not a skill. It truly is an art form. Now, there are principles that you need to know, but then how you do it is an art form. So art is both how you do communication, but what you create. And we are remembered for our art. And some of us are remembered for really bad vocal art. And we have to correct that.
What do you think your superpower is? Like, what do you do better than anybody else?
I actually had to answer that question for this cohort I was in.
Yeah.
I do think one of my superpowers is, to quote MC Hammer, I am magic on a mic. Right. I don't know if I'm dope on the floor, but I'm pretty sure I'm magic on the mic. And yeah, there's something special that happens. You give me an audience, bright lights, a microphone.
Yeah.
The higher the stakes, the more the people there. I like that, but I also have seen transformation come in people's lives. These are things that people have said about me, not things I've just come up with my own. I remember when someone called me an environmentalist. He's like, "You're an environmentalist." And I was like, I mean, I like the outdoors, but not that much.
Right, yeah.
But what he was referring to is like, you create environments for people. And when you create an environment, even if you're not upfront, you know, so like one of my passions projects is hymns and hops.
Yeah, right.
I don't play an instrument. I don't sing.
Yeah.
I've got a total of maybe like 4 minutes of things I say at the beginning, which is like the equivalent of let's get ready to rumble, you know, welcome to hymns and hops, right? Everyone gets excited about that. I do that, and then I might close it out. So I love to facilitate environments. We did this in Chicago just this last week. You know, we each had a speaking role, but I loved facilitating and reading the room and talking to the room. So I think my superpower is that. Put me in front of people, let me talk, but also let me be part of creating that environment. I think those two things together really come together as a unique ability, something really special for me, like if I drill down. But yeah, superpower.
That superpower is pretty cool that you've been able to take that superpower and turn that into a living and a life.
Yeah, for sure, right? Yeah, so as Toby would say, there's a difference between wanting to do something and like loving to do it and getting someone to pay you for it, right? Because wanting to do something and loving to do it is great, but if no one's going to pay for it, it's a hobby. So I do actively talk people out of entrepreneurship regularly.
Yeah.
Because you have to be sure that you are willing to monetize your new hobby, your superpower. Yeah. But then if it doesn't get paid, that it's still something that's a gift to the world.
Right.
And too often when entrepreneurs want to monetize their potential superpower and then no one wants to buy it, they think it's less valuable.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it less valuable.
No, it doesn't.
It just means that it could be so valuable that it has to be your gift to the world.
Right.
Or it's actually such a great hobby that just give it away.
Yeah.
Like have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Like enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like I tried to raise money for my passion project of hymns and hops and a couple, and we raised a good, and people gave. Like I would never dismiss that. But after COVID, I was like, nah, I think that's a gift for the world. Like, you know, if we need something, we'll ask people to give, and we did. We need new speakers. We told them the exact price. We're like, so if we get this, we'll have new speakers, and if you don't give it to us, we'll keep blowing speakers. Like this is what we'll do. And within 5 minutes, we had all the money we needed.
Wow. That's cool.
So I think that that's the thing for an entrepreneur, a business, you know, if you have or a business owner, a potential business owner, if you find something you love and you monetize it, awesome. And that's what I've been able to do with the help of teams and clients and people. But if you find something you really love and you can't monetize it, it doesn't make it any less valuable.
Right. Well, it goes back to value because, you know, monetizing thing is a very specific metric for value.
Correct.
You know, but if you use your hymns and hops example, which is a monthly, bi-monthly.
Well, so this is the crazy about hymns and hops. Okay, so every time we put a date on it and announce it, in the history of hymns and hops since 2016, we've had to cancel that date. So we tell people.
It's like a pop-up shop.
Yeah, it's like when we're fairly confident it's not going to get canceled. So it's about 6 times a year here in Greenville. We're in 4 different areas. They're run on their own, like it's not centralized. But yeah, about 6 times a year we get together and sing old hymns.
It's a bunch of just random people of Christian faith from so many different churches.
So many different
probably
churches.
Many people are unchurched and not even affiliated with really anything.
Correct, or hurt by the church, or like I would never go to church again, or I've lost my faith. But what are you gonna do? Like we're gonna sing old hymns and drink a beer, or not drink a beer. We have people that don't drink, right? It's not the point. But yeah, people just come, but it doesn't have to be monetized.
But people find value in it.
They find
that's
value.
the thing, and that's where I think people who have a hobby that might not be able to be monetized and a love, they need to say, okay, where is the value? Because there might be plenty of people that enjoy it. They're just not willing to pay, tens of 20s, whatever. So.
And on the opposite side of that, at least in my story, is art of the conversation. So like when I created art of the conversation in between 2014 and 2016. when I did it the first couple of times, I just started to do it for free. I was like, and let me say it differently. People are like, what would I pay you for your time? And I was like, oh, I'll do it for free. And they're like, I mean, you probably should charge something.
Right.
I was like, okay. So, I charged a little bit, but I just thought, I was like, you're going to let me talk about something I created?
Yeah.
And then I met with a business coach and he's like, Jonathan, I think this, you love it. I think you can monetize this. And I did, and it grew there. So I would say both of them for me are the same value.
Right. They should be.
They both carry the same amount of excitement and joy. One is my gift to the world. And, the other one I have been able to monetize and I've loved it. I don't think I've compromised either from it.
Yeah. Your superpower, being on the mic, being able to communicate with large amounts of people, help infuse the energy and put people together. That kind of came, if you saw your 5-year-old self, that's not necessarily something that people would put you in that world. It'd be like,
Correct.
Okay, this guy's a writer, he's a public speaker, he's a coach, he's always with strangers in a room, encouraging them. You had an interesting start to kind of your life, and it didn't all start with just you talking.
Correct. Yeah, they probably would have told you it would be the complete opposite, which
Right.
they pretty much told my mom. So when I was a baby, I had febrile seizures, which just means my fever would spike super fast, super hot, and I would seize, right? And it happened enough, right, that it was considered a big problem, and it affected my ability to speak, amongst other things. I also had double ear infections for a long time.
Wow.
So the last time I took a hearing test, which was before I got married, it came back that I was deaf. They're like, you failed.
Oh.
And I was like, well, I can hear that I failed. So and they're like, yeah, we know, but let's try it again.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so my hearing was off, still is to this day. So if you talk behind my back, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
So if you got stuff to say, just move to the back.
Another superpower.
It would be great.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll be able to tune you out. But I also didn't speak well. Now, my mom and, my grandmother who passed away several years ago, there's like old pictures of me lining up my stuffed animals and setting up like a podium and like talking at them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't real words, more like grunts and sounds and stuff that only moms and grandmas can make sense of.
Right.
But I didn't speak in a way that would be probably considered understandable or fluent until 4 or 5 years old.
Wow.
Which, my pediatrician told my mom, you have to get him around people. But due to some of my health issues, I wasn't potty trained at what would be considered like a normal age. So I couldn't get into a normal preschool. She started working with me on speaking and talking. And of course, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
But she'll tell stories. And then the other side of the joke is once I learned how to talk, I never stopped. And,
Right.
there was a moment in my mind. I was in the 6th grade. It was the first talk that I remember. Have you heard this story? I don't think this.
I may have read it in the book.
Is it in the book?
book?
It might be in the book. And it was in the 6th grade, and I got to give a 10-minute talk, right?
Yeah.
When I was done, people clapped.
Yeah.
Someone gave me $5, and I was like,
What?
wait a minute. Okay, so you're telling me if I run my mouth, people will clap for me, and I might make money? Yeah, and I remember that. Like, it was a Wednesday night,
Yeah.
right? And for the people of faith, you know what I mean on
Right.
Wednesday night, right? It was right there.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I remember just thinking, like, I think I could do this.
Yeah.
And I just started looking for as many stages and opportunities. So everything from Shakespeare to, devotionals to I loved oral book reports. I loved group projects. Like, give me an opportunity to speak and I'm going to get after it. I worked in the restaurant business, which is always speaking. Just that refinement of the craft.
Yeah.
So that's why it comes from such a personal place.
Right.
I can't talk about communication. I can't talk about conversation. I can't talk about leadership without it coming off as immensely personal.
Right.
Because it comes from it is the overflow. Like, when I get to talk, it comes from overflow.
Yeah.
And that's, if I looked at my 5-year-old self, no one would say, oh, this is what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. You do your craft from a sense of gratitude, sounds
Yeah.
like,
Oh, deep gratitude and deep appreciation for those who took a chance early on.
Sure.
So we grew up in church. Like, I have no problem with that. We grew up in church, and we would do the Sunday morning and Sunday night thing.
Yep.
The first message I preached at church, Sunday night,
Yeah.
went an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I knew I was going long when like the pastor staff started to take off their jacket. Like, we got to wrap this
buddy.
up, man.
Everybody's hungry.
Yeah. Like,
Oh, my goodness.
and back then, like Lois and Clark was on, and we normally would get pizza. And my grandmother, and there were people came up and shake, because it was like, come up and tell Jonathan how great he did.
Right, yeah.
So grandma cut the front of the line. She was like, that was shorter next time, like way shorter.
That's good.
And then, I probably yelled a little bit more than a 8th grader probably should have in the message or however old I was.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember my parents like, maybe not so angry, maybe not so loud, maybe not yell as much.
Yeah.
And I'm deeply appreciative for those early points. Like, it took me a long time to get it, a long time, right? But the gratitude of those who took the first chance on it, even in the book, on the back, who am I thankful for? The people who I'm thankful for every client I've had, right? Anyone who says, I'm going to take money out of my pocket, put it in your pocket, and the service I offer are the words that come out of my mouth. Yeah. Yes, it's my experience. Yes, it's how my brain works. But I can't tangibly give you something when I'm done. Right. Like, if you hire a woodworker, you're going to get a table, right? You hire, you all to do a podcast, you're going to get a podcast. Yeah. So I'm deeply grateful for all those people. But early on, right? I mean, every business owner, I'm sure you remember those first couple of clients.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you look at the product and you're like, I feel like I should call them and be like, do over.
But yeah, you're right. That there's an immense gratitude that comes from the people in the past, especially who have set you up for success, because nobody's self-made at all, and there's no way around it. Today, how do people? What do people pay you to do? What's your expertise?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what people pay me to do is my expertise is in communication, conversation, and how that affects leadership, team, and culture, which are big words, right? People throw them around. So communication, right? The ability to go back and forth, but communication is really twofold. So communication's 1, nonverbal. 2, verbal. So 80% of your communication is nonverbal.
Yep.
So you are always communicating, right? And some of us don't do the nonverbal really well.
So true.
So 80% is nonverbal, which when we talk about that, we ask the question, hey, what's it like to be on the other side of you? And sometimes that's not really good. Now, for decades, it was 70-30. But then COVID happened, right? And everyone had to shelter in place.
Right.
And everyone's favorite, I use it in quotes, professional app became Zoom or Teams or Google Meet.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is not only are you looking at the people in the room with you, but for the first time in human history, we had a video camera showing us exactly what was happening to our face.
Scary, huh?
In a meeting, yeah. And most people were like, whoa, do I roll my eyes every time Wilma says that? Do I like chuckle every time Fred says he has a question? And then people were like, oh my goodness. And all of a sudden, people started paying a little bit more attention to what was going on non-verbally, and we saw a jump to 80-20. 80% of your communication is non-verbal. We have to talk about that. And we all have room to grow. Like, I have a coach, right? I have a coach that I have to talk to about this. We regularly have to ask, hey, what's it like to be on the other side of me? And the hardest part for that is, what's it like to be on the other side of me as my child? What's it like to be on the other side of me as our spouse? Because, in the world that we're at, a lot of our best goes to our clients.
So true.
And we want to say that it shouldn't be that way. Save the best for, and I want to believe that platitude. But at the end of the day, sometimes my best I give to my clients is the best I give for my kid, because we're going to be able to put food on the table.
Right.
Like, so it's not I'm not giving my best to my kids, but sometimes giving my best is getting on a plane for 5 days. Not every week.
Yeah.
But so part of the hardest part about being on the other side of that nonverbal is our kids, right? Not typically our clients, right? We wouldn't have a client if it was hard, but we've got to ask ourselves that. And if you're leading a team, hey, what's it like to be on the other side of me? That other 20% are the words that come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Well, if only 20% of communication are the words that come out of your mouth, you better pay really close attention to the words that come out of your mouth.
When you're a business leader who's sitting across the table, conference table with all your team, you got them all in a room, what are some of the warning signs that says, hey, communication's a problem in my company and I need to start thinking about ways to fix it?
Yeah, what a great question. Do you have a whiteboard in 2 hours?
Oh, man. Give me a second.
Laying some things out. Okay, one of my favorite quotes from George Bernard Shaw is, the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it's happened. The biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it's happened. So one of the ways communications is an issue is if you have to have a meeting to talk about the meeting that you had before when no one understood what was going on, right? Most people, they leave a meeting and it ends the meeting with like, all right, we all clear? Everyone knows what they're doing? We never ask them to repeat it back to us. Like, I mean, if you want to take an actionable step right now to increase performance, when you are done with a meeting and you ask the question, leader of the meeting, hey, are we all clear? Yes. Great. Everyone's going to go around and talk about what they heard in their action steps. Go.
Nice.
Well, that's going to take 15 more minutes. I would rather spend 15 minutes clarifying and knowing that I'm not living in an illusion that communications happen than have to schedule another 60-minute meeting, right, to explain why we didn't get the project right.
Yeah.
Because if you go all the way around, right, and Wilma's like, well, what I think I heard was I'm supposed to do this. And if you're leading the room and you're like, not at all. Don't want you to do that. Right. Help me understand how you heard that. Because here's the thing. We all are more clear in our ears than we are clear in someone else's ears. Like when I'm talking, I always feel like I'm completely crystal clear.
Yeah.
And then I ask somebody, hey, what did you hear? Hey, repeat back to me what you heard me say. I think one of the keys is at the end of a meeting, go around the room. Hey, what did you hear? What are your action steps? Right? Because we need to drive performance. One of the other things to say as a leader, how you know it's going wrong, or not wrong, how you know there's areas there, is when you get a lot more of, yeah, I got it, than somebody asking you questions.
Yeah. Because
you are not as clear as you think.
Right.
So leaders, business owners, if people aren't asking you questions about what you said, there's some there's a disconnect between the safety of that employee being able to bring challenge to you.
Right.
And again, I know safety is a big, broad word, but what I mean is they don't feel comfortable to tell you they don't understand you.
Right.
Because you've probably squashed curiosity. And they would rather go Google it, YouTube it, ask somebody like, hey, what do you think boss man wanted? What do you think boss woman wanted? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So if no one's asking you questions, that's a huge indication. If no one's asking for clarity, that's a huge indication that communication's not happening. Yes, you have a monologue. You stand up, you speak, they think about it. It's kind of like how I go to some Shakespeare plays. When you go to hear a Shakespeare play, you don't understand everything that's coming out of their mouth.
Right.
You go for the gist. You're like, I think I know what that monologue was about. And I laughed at some of the jokes. I'm not sure why that was funny, but it was funny how they brought it together and the characters on stage were funny.
And I was sitting beside someone that laughed.
Laughed.
So I laughed.
Oh, yeah, me too. I get it too. I have no idea, but I get it too.
I'm cultured too.
Right. Like it's when people go, they enjoy the opera.
Yeah.
Okay. My wife and I met in an opera. I did not speak French when we did a French opera. But when I watched it, I could pick up from what the characters were doing, who got stabbed, who died, who's crying. I'm like, oh, they don't like each other. Like I could pick it up. Fun for Shakespeare, fun for opera, fun for a night out. Terrible for business. If your team's sitting around you just trying to get the gist, then their performance is just the gist of what they thought you wanted. If no one's asking for clarity, if no one's asking for questions, you know there's a communication gap, right? So, and then lastly, well, not lastly, but for right now to let you comment, leaders, if you're concerned or scared, afraid, not willing, don't have time to regularly sit down with your people, specifically those who are your direct reports or those leading out your company, then you know you have a communication problem.
Yeah.
Like if you are, and if you get honest with yourself, you're like, I don't have time, I'm too busy, or I don't know what they're going to say. I don't like what they're going to say. Then you have a major communication problem.
So true, man. There's so many things I've been guilty of, as a leader. Trust and time are so interesting things because time is, I find myself in a hurry, of like, I'm just going to spit this out.
Yeah.
Everybody catch it. And then let's just go into the next agenda item. When time is a killer of communication, seems like. I mean, you tell me, you're the communication expert, but from what I've seen, it's going fast never helps communication unless it's, hey, there's a fire in the building. Y'all might want to vacate. That's when you want to kind of like speak fast, have some emergency. Yeah,
I think if we've, so I'm certified and connected to Giant Worldwide and 5 Voices. Another thing that we do there is something called 5 Gears. And it's about being present and productive at the pace of life, at the pace of influence. So when we're talking about time, think about you're in a car, right? If I'm going 100 miles down the road, as long as it's legal, right? As long as we're on a racetrack, right? As long as it's right. When you're going 100 miles down the road, you're probably not listening to music. If you are, it's just sound in the background. You're not drinking a water bottle, but you're definitely not talking to somebody.
Right.
Right? You're going 100 miles an hour, eyes on the road, hands on the steering wheel. right? NASCAR drivers and Formula One drivers, they're not playing T Swift in their ears while they're going, right? They're focused on it. If you're in a meeting or you're in a posture or you're in a moment where you've got to go metaphorically 100 miles an hour, okay, just name that though. Don't try to go 100 miles an hour and hold a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
It's not possible. If you're going 70 or 80, 65 to 85 down the highway, you probably got some music on. You might be listening to a podcast. You probably got a water or coffee. You're probably talking to somebody. You can task switch while going at that speed.
Right.
But at the end of the day, too, you got to keep your eyes pretty much on the road, right? Yeah. So the time it takes to go from one location to another at 100 miles an hour is way faster and doesn't take as much time as going 65 to 85, right? Now go down for your Sunday scroll, right? Let's just skip all the way down to 20, 25 miles an hour. Yeah. You're going to get so frustrated, you're going to spend more time talking, which is why you're going to get into a fender bender, right? Because you're going so slow in your car that you actually miss or you forget the fact that you're driving a car, right? Yeah. Okay. How does that play into time for communication? You need to know what pace you're going in that moment before you start a conversation, right? CEOs, business owners, VPs. If you're in 100 mile an hour zone, you're probably not going to slam on the brakes to have a conversation.
Yep.
So you have to identify when is my times of the day when I'm going 100 miles an hour, and I need to communicate that to my team, right? In giant language, that's fifth gear. Like when I'm in fifth gear, team, unless it's fire, unless something's going to bring our business down, we're going to lose a client, right? Unless something like that, please don't stop me. But you can't live that way. Yep. And I've had business owners, I'm always in fifth gear. I'm like, yeah, that's why you burned out. That's why no one wants to be around you.
But you're burned out. The people
your teams
around
are
you are burned out.
And
your
they're
marriage
trying to,
is burned out.
Yeah, they're trying to tell you, like, I'm always, and like they got like this ego that like always being in fifth gear is some like, yeah.
Hustle
but
bro.
a Formula One driver likes when he gets to go 50 miles an hour, right? In a normal car. Yeah. Like people who go fast like to slow down. Yeah. So I think when it comes to time, it's okay to go 100 miles an hour when appropriate. It's not appropriate to go 100 miles an hour and think you can listen to a podcast, drink a cup of coffee, and hold a conversation.
Love that.
So I think when it comes to time, set your time right. Set your priorities. It's not about to-do lists. It's about priorities. Set your priorities. What priority needs 100? What priority needs fifth gear? What priority can you go 50 miles an hour and talk with folks? So I think when it comes to time, it's not all equal, and it all doesn't have to go at the same speed.
Right.
But it's up to you as a leader to be able to identify, hey, how fast am I going right now? And is it appropriate to have a conversation?
Yeah, I love that. I think you talk about this in your book, where you talk about, because naming it is super fascinating.
Okay.
Because in your book, you talk about, you're telling people, hey, I have to take a call in just a second. So this might be abbreviated or whatever. Yeah. You wrote the words, you remembered, I'm sure. But the naming it is super interesting, and just being clear about like, hey, this is my expectations, or this is what's happening in my life right now.
Yeah.
Because there's probably a lot of grace that people can have if they understand this is the why behind Will's rushing, Jonathan's rushing, and there might not be a meaningful conversation happening in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, clarity is kind. I don't remember exactly who said that first, not me, but clarity is kind. And naming the conversation is very kind. Meaning when someone comes and asks you, hey, do you have a minute to talk? What we know is they never need 1 minute. Okay, we know that.
Yeah.
Or hey, just a sec. We know that's not true because to say just a sec took 2 seconds. Like, right? But they're letting you know they want to say something. So one of the things we have to realize as leaders, or just as good vocal artists, right, is what a good conversationalist. Name the boundaries of what's happening, right? Hey, do you have just a sec? Well, here's the deal. I've got a call in 5 minutes. Right? And I'd love to give you my full attention. Will what you want to talk about take more than 5 minutes? Yes, it will. Okay, then let's not do it now because I want to give you my full time and attention. Can you send a meeting request? Or hey, better yet, let's pull out your phone and in this 5 minutes, let's pick the meeting.
Yeah.
Like right here, let's use the 5 minutes to schedule the meeting. Right? And then you get to ask questions. Is this high urgent, high important? Oh, it's actually really urgent. Okay, so let's do it today. Right? No, it's not urgent. It's just important. Cool. Next week work? Yeah. Like, so you take that 5 minutes where you could have rushed through a communication, rushed through an answer.
Right.
Probably been late and scatterbrained for your other one. And that other person doesn't really feel seen, heard, and valued because you rushed through what they want.
And they get the gist.
And they get the gist, and then they're going to get the gist and work that out. And it's like the game of telephone. It's only going to get worse. Right? So one of the things like, hey, I've only have 5 minutes. Will that be enough time? If someone's like, yes, go great. Go for it. Right? And let them get it out, right? Naming the conversation. Hey, do you have a couple minutes? Or hey, can we talk? Hey, is is this going to be like collaborative? It's going to be a long time, or hey, like, are you about to give me bad news? Like, trying to get information about what the conversation's about will actually help you set the guidelines and the parameters for how much time and what you got to bring to the conversation.
It's a great way to tell someone no kindly too,
right?
And set boundaries. Because I mean, if I came to you and you said, "Will, I don't have time, but let's figure this out," and you asked me some questions and you had some intentionality about it, even though you said no, I'm like, man, he cares. You know, I am a priority, and you know what I'm trying to do. The mission that he's set me on is important. You know, and I'm going to be more amped for the next conversation than ever before.
Exactly. See, like, we view no as some bad word, right? No doesn't have to be bad. No can actually be very good.
Yeah.
No, don't do that, right? Because you'll hurt yourself. No, don't do that. You're going to hurt a client. No, don't do that. You're going to take down the customer. Like, no is a good word. The problem, what happens is we are uncomfortable with no. So we give another answer that kind of like circles no, that gives people the hope that it might be a yes. Like, hey, do you have a few minutes today? Oh yeah, I'm sure I'll have a few minutes at the end of the day. When in your mind, you know you're booked till 6, but you think that's more kind to give people false hope rather than going like, no, I don't have time today. But listen, I'm going to be in the office tomorrow at 7:30. You want to meet then? Yes. Great. Yes for me. Yes for you. Yeah. Like, the no actually allows you to end this part of the conversation, end this level of hope, to then recreate the hope, the expectation for what could follow.
Yeah.
Dragging it on, like, hey, are you going to be able to get back to my email? Oh, yeah. By tomorrow. When you know you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So just say, hey, no, I'm not going to be able to. But you know what? Right now, let me put in my calendar to get it to you. When do you need it? Oh, Friday by noon. Great. I'm going to put in my calendar. Then I'm going to have it to you by noon on Thursday. Put a count, and I'm going to work on that.
Man.
No is liberating because it allows that conversation to be done to be able to set up the next round of communication.
It's saying yes.
To whatever's next.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that goes to trust too, because, you know, the time element, if you get that sorted, then you're not rushing through life, promising things that you know will never happen.
Right.
That they know that you know will never happen. You know,
Correct.
Because people are not dumb. They pick up on stuff. So like they're like, he's just blowing me off. And it actually allows you to be somebody trustworthy. And I speak from experience that so much of my life I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. And you know, in the attempt to try to not hurt your feelings, I was making things worse.
Yeah.
By not just being clear and being like, hey, this is not a priority for me. I can't do this at this very second, but you know, I can do this at this time.
Yeah, you're delaying hurting their feelings,
right?
Which will then just compound their feelings being hurt.
Exactly.
Like, bad news or a no does not age like wine. Like, it gets worse.
Yeah.
Right? It just gets worse. You know, so like sending an email at 4 p.m. on a Friday, like, hey, come by my office Monday morning. Just saying that, all weekend, all they're thinking about is, I'm in trouble. I did something wrong.
Yeah.
What did I miss? Rather than going, right, and then they show up on Monday, just find out that it's a celebratory meeting, or like, oh, really excited to collaborate. And they're like, oh my goodness, I've been head trashing and filling in all these gaps in this narrative, which then actually has caused me to not trust you as much. Right? Rather than going, hey, on Friday, come by my office on Monday, we're going to collaborate on this new project. Really excited here. Well, now my trust went up for you.
Yeah.
Like, again, and it's kind of you to call me the expert. I'm still working on this.
I think, aren't we all?
We're all still working on this. Like,
right?
It's this idea of like, we have to keep getting better at it, because just when I think I'm great at it, one thing happens and I'm like, yep, there it is.
Should read the book.
Should read the book again. And I've read this book plenty of times, and I've given this talk a lot. And it's this idea. I think here's the thing with trust. Trust is mutual, right? Trust is mutual. One-sided trust is really complicated, because if I feel like Will trusts me, but Will's like, I don't really trust you, I have an illusion, right, that I'm operating in that's not healthy, and we're not going to be able to get the results that we want. Yeah. Trust is mutual, which means you actually have to talk about it. Because what we probably have is a misunderstanding and overvaluation of how much trust someone has in us, specifically as leaders. Oh, my team trusts me. When was the last time you asked them?
Right.
When was the last time you did something to demonstrate, right, that you are trustworthy? And when it comes to communication, that will slowly pick at your trust almost more than anything. There's big things you can do that will cause you to lose trust in chunks, right? We don't have to talk about those.
Yeah.
But the little picking at your trust that people have for you is you simply just not getting back to them when you said you were going to, not following through with what you were going to say you were going to do, rushing through a meeting. Like, it's not going to be these huge chunks that go out, but over time, you're going to be like, why don't they trust me anymore? And I'm like, well, it's probably because of how you've communicated to them.
Yeah.
It's probably what you said to them. It's probably how you've let them down in the little things. If you're asking that question, you probably haven't done anything big.
Yeah.
But you've probably done enough little things around communication, around how you've led them, that just cause it to kind of pick away, right? And if you want to build trust, trust is built on being consistent, right, over long periods of time. Some trust can be built in leaps. Most trust is built in steps. But trust also can be lost in one misstep, right? One big leap. And that's why we have to be careful with how we handle it. It's delicate and fragile, and needs more consistency than it does need these huge acts.
Oh, that makes sense. Art of the Conversation.
Yeah, great book.
Your book. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Such a spectacular book.
So,
right.
no, it really is good. I mean,
Thank you.
And the book was a bit of a surprise because it's both instruction, but almost like a practical, and not almost, truly a practical workbook.
Correct.
Where you can read through this and you can go get things done.
That's the point of the book.
And be better. And I love the fact that it's a masterclass in both how to communicate, but then also how to do in the next steps.
Yeah,
and I love that. It was just it's been so good. And my wife is really high into communication. She's taught me a lot about that. So it's one I want her to read as well. You even have little margins in the side for
Very
people to write
intentional.
notes.
Yeah.
Which when I first got the book, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like, you don't really see that. Usually the page fills, and then it's like, oh, there's a note in here that says, hey, write notes. And I'm always scribbling. As you can see, I'm a highlighter massively, and then I'll scribble as well. Really fascinating. So everybody uses the word art as just a kind of a descriptor, the art of whatever, the art of war, right?
Right. Yeah.
But you used art as a metaphor to carry across like the how to and how to not converse.
Yeah.
Why was art such an important thing, that like a medium to kind of get that conveyed?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question. And the book, and the mere fact, I mean, we did not prep that. The mere fact that that's what you got from the book was what I set out to do. I wanted to create. I'm on a plane a decent amount, so the goal was that you could read it in 90 minutes. Really, I had in my mind from Greenville to Chicago, you could read it and be a better conversationalist afterwards. But the other piece was, not every company, not every team can bring me in to do the training. So I was like, if I can give you the foundation and the wide margin and the notes on the back of each chapter is for you to contextualize it to your team. Yeah. Buy everyone the book, have them read it, and use it as that training resource, right? To be able to do it. And that was the big reason we wrote the book the way we did. Was so that it was immediately practical, but that you could customize it, tailor it, right, to your team and audience.
As someone who tries to read a business book a week, I'm thanking you for not making it 300 pages and dense. And thank you for not using Apple as an example for any part.
You are more than welcome.
So thank you.
Yeah, and that was, I love that you said it too. The other piece was, when you think about time, if you finish a 300-page book in a week, which would be awesome, let's say even a month, do you remember page 3? I would rather you read my book 4 times in a year and keep getting better at it than forgetting what you read in page 1. Now, I read those books too, no shade to those authors, right? But it's like, I just wanted it to be super practical, which goes to the idea of art, right? So why do I call art? So art's, I did it with a play on words, right? So art is both how you do conversations. Communication and conversation is not a skill. It truly is an art form. Now, there are principles that you need to know. Yeah. Right, some foundational pieces in the book, some foundational pieces that you need to understand. But then how you do it is an art form, right? How Will does it is differently than how Jonathan does it, which is different than how Jessica does it, which is different than how Stacy, like we all create our own art. How you do it is an art form. Yes, you need to teach them about colors and paints and what happens if you put orange and blue together. Like, you need to know the foundations of painting, just like you need to know the foundations of communication. But you have to let people create their own art, right? We like artists who are different. If everyone was Beethoven, Beethoven wouldn't be special. If everyone, right, was your favorite poet, poetry wouldn't be special, right? We like the diversity of art. So it is a communication conversation, not a skill, it's an art, right? You've got to learn how to do it your way. But the other side of art, it's not just what you do, right? It's what you create. right? It's not just how you communicate, it's how you create something. And what we know about words is that our words, right, paint an imaginary picture in someone's mind that even the best AI can't capture, which is why the book is always better than the movie. It's always better than the movie, even with the millions of dollars, right, that you can put on it. Well, why? Because what we create in our mind, right, with the words that come out is the art that we want to remember. Yeah. And that's how conversations work. When I use words, I use paint to paint a picture in your mind, and art is felt, right, before it is factual. Yeah. Right? Art is felt before it is factual. I mean, the banana duct tape to the wall just sold for $6.2 million.
I'm in the wrong business.
Right? I mean, there are stories about why he bought it, but there was something that artist did to that person who bought it for $6.2 million that created a feeling. Factually, it makes no sense, right? But art creates a feeling. That's how our words work. That's why you won't remember everything on this podcast, the words, every word that came out of our mouth, but you will remember how you feel. Yeah. Hey, leaders, they won't remember everything you said. They will remember how they felt about it, right? Business owners to a customer or a client, right? What we were talking about before. Like, you know why some clients stay with you? Because it's how they feel and how you communicate to them. So art is both how you do communication, but what you create. And we are remembered for our art. And some of us are remembered for really bad vocal art. Yeah. And we have to correct that. But the other piece of art, right, and why it was so important to me is we have to talk about our public art, which that's the conversations we have. This part's not in the book. This will be in book 2. It's the idea of our private art gallery, the art we create that only we hear. And we say some pretty terrible things to ourselves. Like, if we went to our private art gallery of our own minds, we realize that we are really devaluing of ourselves. We say really terrible things about ourselves. And our private art gallery, the stuff that only we hear, if we looked at it, we're like, yeah, that's really bad art. We use a lot of black and gray. Like, we got no colors, right? And I think one of the pieces we have to realize is your public art, right, is a reflection of your private art gallery. If you're struggling with communication out here, you're probably struggling with communication in here. Yeah. If you're really caustic and rash and unkind out here, you might be very much that in here, right? And one of the things when we're talking about art is valuable, not necessarily because of the colors on it or the frame around it, but because of who did it, how rare it is, how it makes me feel. Right? So just telling someone, oh, I'm valuable, the words I'm saying valuable, you better pay attention. That doesn't make your art valuable. No. How you do it, how it makes people feel, how it comes from the overflow, and how rare it is, which goes all the way back, right? What will differentiate the next generation of companies to be successful will play a part in the tech they use and how they're able to market. But I truly believe it will be what differentiates people is they take their art seriously. They take their conversations seriously. They take the words that come out of their mouth seriously. And we all have room to improve on this. All of us. So that's the idea of art. It's both how you do it and what you create.
I love that. It's just such a good analogy. And there's a word you use, oeuvre.
Oeuvre, yeah.
That's the first time ever. I got a dictionary.
Word guy.
For on my 12th birthday.
Yeah.
I asked for it.
Yep.
Oeuvre.
Yeah.
Explain that.
The summation of all of your work, right? It's the summation of an artist's whole collection, the dictionary definition is probably more clear and robust, but I like the picture of it. It's if you put all of Michelangelo's work together, that is it. Yeah. If you take all of, Beethoven's work and put it together, that's it, right? Yeah. If we took all of your artwork, Will, all of my artwork of Jonathan, right? Your whole masterpiece collection, we put on an art gallery, right? An art show in a gallery. Would you invite people? Would you want people to see it? I think we'd be like, some of it. Like, can I put my best pieces out? Like, can we just do the top 10? And I think we're right. I think you have more than top 10. I think if we did look at it, knowing our flaws and knowing we're human, we would put a good piece out. But there are those pieces, and this is what's key, that aren't as good, right? They aren't as good. I went back through and I looked at some of my old original videos. right? And they're not as good, right? How I say things, not as great. And people are like, you should delete those so people don't find them. And I started to delete some. But then my art, right? And I still struggle to say this word, lovely the French, the oeuvre, right? Of my whole collection. I want you to see how I've grown.
Yeah.
I want you to see that I have changed. I want you to actually look at this piece of art and go, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you don't do that anymore. Or like, man, that was a pivotal moment for me. Some people want to hide their scars. I think we need to show more of our scars so that we can see the growth.
Yeah.
Right? And this idea of bringing your whole collection together, it doesn't mean it has to be perfect, but it should show, right, that you've grown, that you have made changes, that there are some pieces, right? We all remember David, right? The statue of David, right, is his masterpiece. Yeah. But he also had a lot of stuff no one would pay for.
Right.
Right? Now maybe they pay for it and say it was a Michelangelo. But if you brought it all together, yeah, there's going to be some that stand out. Of course there are.
Yeah.
But we have to think about our life as if we ever were to put on an art show. What would we show and would we invite people? Business leaders and business owners, if we were to put on an art show for your company's internal communication, would people want to work for your company? Like if we were able to do that, would people be like, this art's so good, I want to be in the wait list to get in? Or would be the art so bad, people would be like, I get why you don't have good retention.
Yeah.
Right? I get why on Glassdoor it's that, right? So that idea of your whole masterpiece coming together, it doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean you cut out all the bad art. It means you own it.
Yeah.
You name it. You apologize where necessary. And then you show how you grew through it and how you got better at your art, how you got better at your communication, how you got better at being a human, right, in this crazy world.
I love that. The artists that we know today and we love today who's have classic works, we love seeing their newer stuff or the stuff that was from their early years.
Yeah.
Because it tells us how they grew.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It tells us the world that they were looking through and how they were trying to refine their art.
Yep.
And also we can see those glimpses of brilliance. I'll go like, okay, you're not there yet, but I can see how your work is getting you to that point that I really fell in love with you.
Yep.
And I think that's why I'm glad you didn't destroy those videos and delete them, because it does have value. And it's a place where I know it helped people in that moment. And it can still help people today, even though it's not a complete work of art and it's not exactly the quite the brush strokes that you wanted and all that.
Yep.
But it does have value. And I think there's something to be said for I'm growing and you should grow with me.
And the other side of that is if I was to delete it because it just didn't make me look good, to your point, what about to the person who got value out of that and went, no, I remember that.
Right. That was life-changing for me.
Right. Yeah, like, well, just because it wasn't my best or I would do it differently or maybe I wasn't in the best frame of mind or maybe my mindset wasn't as good. But if one person, there's something, so I used to watch a lot of Gary Vee videos, which if you've never watched a Gary Vee video, I mean, you're going to be, it's different than this podcast. Let's just say it's a different show, right? It's probably not family friendly completely. But I remember Gary Vee said something that was one of those like light bulb moments where he said it in a much more compelling way, but he said, I just want to talk to you about the fact that if one person reads your post and hits the like button, if one person, what an amazing gift you've just received.
Yep.
If you wrote something and one person liked it, if one person watched your video and if one person did it, and he gets millions of likes, it's like, if one person does it, out of everything that's out there, that's a huge gift.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that going like, man, I'm okay if only 6 people show up to my workshop because 6 people out of all the workshops they could have picked to go to chose mine. Like, what a gift. Like if one person, for the people watching right now, like in your posting and you're getting after that social media world and you're getting after the posting and you're doing videos, I just want to encourage you, if one person says, man, that valued me, that was awesome. It might not be your best art. It might be the thing you want to do, in the back room. But one person may go back to that and go, that piece of art was impactful to me. What you said here was impactful to me.
Yeah.
Like I bumped into somebody that was in one of my talks years ago. 6+ years ago. just this week. And he looked at me and was like, hey, you probably don't remember, but when you said this, I still think about that every day.
That's a gift.
What a humbling, yeah. Like I remember going, really, out of everything, he's like, yeah, I think about it every day. He's like, so just so you know, yeah, it might not be my best art. And there's some art in there that's just not good. It's bad art because I didn't behave well and I didn't say the right things well.
Yeah.
But even bad art, you typically take something away from.
Yeah.
And I think when we think about our whole masterpiece should be more of, man, they showed up and they were present. They showed up and they were them. They showed up and they gave themselves permission to overcome their inhibitions and do what they feel like they were supposed to do. And they showed us their scars and they put out there like, I'm human on this journey with you. And this is my collection. Rather than, oh, I just give you the perfect stuff.
Yeah.
No one believes that.
Right. Yeah.
No one believes that.
No, they don't. And this has been just a fascinating conversation.
Oh, I love it.
I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm grateful for your friendship, and it's been good to know you over the years. And anytime we get to chat, it's so good. The idea of art is super interesting too, because even if it's bad art, how we would call bad art, and as an artist, it's something that I think about, like huge. But art is not for me once I make it. It's not mine anymore, which is our words and our art, even though it may be imperfect or even though it may be the greatest, most crafted thing and we're so proud of it, it's not for us. Yeah. Okay, last question. Okay. What do you think is the big takeaway from today? What's the thing that people should walk away from, knowing and just having just be that core thought from this episode?
The big take. Whoa, hit the mic. All right, can I give you two?
Do it.
So the big takeaway for me, right, so let's start internal, is the importance of having more conversations. Like even here, I'm like running through my day going, oh yeah, that wasn't great art. Oh yeah. Like I'm still in process. Like, so the big takeaway for me is the more we get to converse about conversation, the more I'm like, yeah, I got a lot of room to grow. Right. Yeah. So I think one of the big takeaways for me is like, yeah, keep doing the work. Right. Keep doing the work. I think the big takeaway, if people just skipped right to the end, right, the big takeaway I would probably want them to know is that you are not defined by your best conversation you've ever had, and you're not defined by the worst conversation you ever had. Hey, leaders, you're not defined by the best conversation you had with your team, and you're not defined by the worst conversation you had with your team. You are, though, always making art. So let's just be more intentional, right? Let's not try to be perfect. Let's try to be more intentional. Let's every day realize the words coming out of our mouths and the nonverbal ones, we're creating art. Yeah. Don't define yourself by the best. Don't define yourself by the worst. Define yourself by being intentional every day with the words that come out of your mouth that creates art that will impact people and that you will be remembered for. If we're just more intentional every minute, every day, if we're just intentional about the one moment in front of us, then create amazing art and then do that for the next moment after that.